18 months have passed since the night my then fiancé almost killed me. I'm only putting the full account in writing now because the shock has finally worn off enough for me to face it again. I'm 29 now. Back then I was engaged to Lisa, who was 27. Notice the past tense. We had been a couple for 2 years and engaged for 4 months. The wedding was set for the following spring. That obviously never happened. First thing you need to know, I suffer from a life-threatening peanut allergy. Not the mild kind that gives you hives. I'm talking full airway closure, can't breathe, drop-dead anaphylaxis. I was diagnosed at age 6 after a birthday party incident that landed me in the ICU. I've carried an EpiPen every single day since. Lisa knew this from our very first date. I always disclose it immediately because when someone is going to cook for you or choose restaurants, it's non-negotiable information. She acted completely understanding at the start. She even told me her cousin was deathly allergic to shellfish, so she totally got it. That was 2 years earlier. Little by little, I began noticing eye rolls and snide remarks. Whenever I double-checked with waiters about cross-contamination or hidden peanut ingredients, she'd exhale loudly or smirk. Once she flat-out told me I was making a scene for no reason. I brushed it off as frustration or ignorance about how serious it actually was. Then, roughly half a year ago, the digs became sharper. We were having dinner at her parents' place. Her mom had prepared Thai dishes. I politely asked whether the sauté sauce contained peanuts. Lisa laughed and told her mother not to worry, that I was just overly cautious about everything I ate and used the allergy as an excuse to be fussy. I corrected her in front of everyone, calmly explaining that it was a genuine, doctor-documented, potentially fatal condition. Her mom was lovely. She pulled out every jar and packet to prove it was safe. But Lisa was visibly irritated that I had contradicted her narrative. On the car ride home, she exploded, accusing me of humiliating her in front of her family. I was floored. Asking a simple safety question had somehow become an attack on her. She apologized a day later, blaming work stress. I accepted it and tried to move on. But the pattern continued. At restaurants, she'd deliberately order peanut-heavy dishes and get annoyed when I refused even a taste, saying I was ruining the meal for everyone. Her friends picked up the cue and started calling me high maintenance to my face. Lisa just chuckled along instead of shutting it down. I began second-guessing myself, wondering if I really was blowing things out of proportion. 2 months before the incident, she brought home takeout pad Thai. The ingredients label clearly listed peanuts. I pointed it out and said I obviously couldn't eat it. She lost it, insisting that a few crushed nuts wouldn't kill anyone and that I was being absurd. I reminded her that severe means exactly that, any amount can be lethal. She stormed off, ate the whole container herself, and left me to make a boring sandwich. I see now that was the moment I should have left. But save the dates were already mailed, deposits were non-refundable, her parents were heavily involved. Ending an engagement over food issues felt impossible. Hindsight is brutal. A few weeks later, we were discussing the honeymoon. She wanted Thailand. I gently reminded her that Thai cuisine is loaded with peanuts and traveling there would be genuinely dangerous for me. She accused me of sabotaging her dreams and using the allergy to dictate every decision we made. The word control came up repeatedly, as if needing to stay alive was a power play. We had a massive argument, I told her plainly. If she couldn't respect a condition that could kill me, we had no future. She shot back that people with legitimate allergies don't turn it into a full-time drama and that I was paranoid. Again, she apologized the next morning, claiming her sister had convinced her my symptoms were psychosomatic, anxiety mimicking an allergy. I pointed out I'd had this since childhood, with decades of medical proof. She said fine, she believed me now. I thought the storm had passed. Then came that evening. I walked in from work around 6:30 p.m. Lisa announced she had cooked dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce, one of the few dishes I considered 100% safe because she'd made it safely many times before. I sat down and took a couple of forkfuls. Something tasted slightly off, sweeter than usual, but I assumed she'd tweaked the recipe. By the third bite, my lips were tingling. By the fourth, my tongue felt heavy. I stopped eating and asked what exactly she had added to the sauce. She shrugged, eyes on her phone, and said just the normal ingredients: tomatoes, ground beef, garlic, herbs. My throat was already tightening. I asked again more urgently if anything was different. She casually said no. I could feel the swelling climbing. I stood up, went to the hall cupboard for my EpiPen bag, and that's when I heard her laugh. I turned. She was staring at me with an amused grin. "What's the matter?" she asked, almost playfully. Something's wrong with the food, I rasped, voice already strange. Really? She said, tilting her head. Or is this another one of your performances? My airway was closing fast. This was not anxiety, this was the real thing. Hands shaking, I pulled out the EpiPen. You're seriously going to use that over pasta? She mocked. I jammed it into my thigh. The rush of adrenaline opened things a little, but not enough. I still needed a hospital. She watched me, smile fading slightly, and then dropped the bomb. I stirred in some peanut butter, just a spoonful, to show everyone you've been faking this whole time. I couldn't speak. Breathing was taking every ounce of focus. You're fine, she insisted. Look, you're standing there talking, it's all in your head. I wasn't fine. The EpiPen buys minutes, not miracles. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, wheezed out anaphylaxis and our address. The dispatcher told me units were 2 minutes out. Lisa realized I was actually calling emergency services. Her expression changed from smug to alarmed. You're calling an ambulance? For real? I couldn't answer. I was concentrating on each shallow sip of air. I yanked a Ziploc bag from a kitchen drawer, scraped a portion of the spaghetti into it, evidence, and sealed it. Sirens approached. Lisa started backpedaling fast. This is insane. Tell them it's nothing when they get here. You're totally fine. I shook my head and staggered to the front door. Paramedics burst in. I croaked anaphylaxis, pointed to the spent EpiPen on the table. They slapped an oxygen mask on me, checked vitals, started treatment. Lisa hovered, telling them, he's just anxious, he does this all the time. One paramedic glanced at my closing throat and snapped. Ma'am, his airway is almost completely swollen. This is life-threatening. As they loaded me onto the stretcher, I thrust the bag of pasta toward the nearest medic and whispered, she put peanuts in it on purpose. I'm deathly allergic. The paramedic's eyes widened. He took the bag, looked hard at Lisa, and asked me to confirm. I nodded. He told his partner to log it as intentional exposure, possible poisoning. Lisa tried to follow us into the ambulance, still protesting. The doors closed on her. En route, they pushed IV epinephrine, steroids, Benadryl. One of them radioed the ER that we had a food sample and suspected deliberate allergen exposure. They asked if I wanted police to meet us at the hospital. I managed a weak thumbs up. At the ER, they rushed me straight through. More drugs, more monitoring. A nurse took my full statement and looked sick when I finished. Your own fiancé did this intentionally. That's assault, possibly attempted murder, depending on the prosecutor. 2 officers arrived shortly after. I recounted everything. The 2 years of minimization, the escalating comments, that night's confession. They asked for proof beyond my word. I told them the paramedics had the food. The female officer stepped out, returned with the sealed bag, and said even without lab results it reeked of peanut butter. They photographed the used EpiPen, my medical alert bracelet, the IV site. Lisa apparently decided to come to the hospital. She walked into the waiting room and was immediately detained. I heard her down the corridor screaming that she had every right to see her fiancé, that this was ridiculous. The officers read her rights for assault with a deadly weapon. Her voice faded as they removed her. The female officer who stayed with me said, "You did the right thing. This wasn't an accident. She admitted it to you and later to us." Doctors kept me overnight because of the risk of a second-phase reaction. My phone was blowing up. First texts from Lisa were frantic apologies, then denial. It was barely any, then rage, "You're ruining my life over nothing," and finally pleading not to press charges. I ignored everyone. Her mother, sister, and father all called hurling abuse. Friends sent group messages calling me cruel and vindictive. I blocked every number. My brother was the only call I answered. When I told him, he was speechless for a solid 10 seconds, then furious. He insisted on coming the next day. Morning came, vitals stable, discharged with strict instructions. I went straight to the police station, signed the formal complaint, applied for an emergency protective order, granted within the hour. Lisa had her bail hearing that afternoon, $50,000. She posted it and was released, but the no-contact order was already active. My brother, Dad, and 2 of Dad's burly friends helped me move out that same day. The apartment was trashed. She had smashed plates, shredded clothes, destroyed anything she could. We filled a truck, dropped my keys, and I broke the lease citing domestic violence. Landlord let me out penalty-free. Word spread quickly among wedding vendors. Every single one refunded deposits in full. None wanted their name tied to that story. Preliminary hearing a couple of weeks later. Lisa's lawyer claimed it was an accident, that she didn't grasp the severity. Prosecutor presented texts, medical history, paramedic testimony. Judge bound her over for trial. 4 months of delays, then a 2-day jury trial. Evidence was overwhelming. Lab-confirmed peanut protein in the sauce, decades of my medical records, her own recorded admission. Defense tried to portray me as a controlling hypochondriac. Jury didn't buy it. Guilty, 3 years, likely out in 18 months with good behavior, probation after, mandatory allergy education classes and anger management. Her family screamed at the judge, security dragged them out. That was a year and a half ago. She was released last month. Permanent protective order, no contact ever. Her family still occasionally posts vague rants about the evil ex who destroyed their daughter over a misunderstanding. I know the truth. The courts know the truth. I'm alive, that's enough.